am Elmore, President and Founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association, here today to bring you in another exciting Black Buddhist lectures. We at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association are not only the Black Buddhist force in America, we are the Black Buddhist force in the world, and we are the only Black Buddhist organization in the world that do not have Asian Buddhist masters. When we learned that the Asians extricated all Black history, culture, and language from the Buddhist teachings, we extricated them out as our teachers. Now, today we're going to bring you an exciting Buddhist lecture. My lecture today is Buddhism and Black and Proud Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, when Black people stand up and when we say we're the Black Buddhists of America, they try to shame us to make us think that we are anti-American. Well, we in this lecture show you that we are not anti-American, but we Proud Black Buddhists are the real American. I went on to become a 5-time world karate kickboxing champion. And we did live the American dream. We were part of the American dream. In that in 1981, I was the first person in America to bring ESPN to Memphis, Tennessee. Back when we started kickboxing, we were the founders of karate kickboxing that later became known as mixed martial arts that we see today. So we are the pioneers and we are the founders. In fact, what I want you to see is that I want you to see a scene of me in Melbourne, Australia in 1990. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm wearing the red, the white, and the blue. And there was nothing greater than going to a foreign country like Australia and you represent America. See, they try to categorize us as being some revolutionary people that's against the American government. Well, I'm here to tell you that through my Buddhist practice, I embrace the red, the white, and the blue. And all of these white people come up and say, we're going to make America great again, and we are the real Americans. Well, we, Proud Black Buddhists, are just as American as in America. And how many of them could go to Melbourne, Australia, fight in front of 10,000 people, and you got your red, the white, and the blue, and you represent America? That is the red, white, and blue. We who are Proud Black Buddhists practice the teachings as taught by the 13th century Black Buddhist sage Nichiren Shonin. He was a Black Japanese sage. And Nichiren Shonin, we follow his teachings. Now, it is Nichiren who teach that the highest teachings of the Buddha is only the Lotus Sutra. You see, this is how Nichiren explains it. Now, he explains things in letters that are called the Gosho, and there's a Gosho called the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. The Daimoku means the title. So there's a Gosho called the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, or the title of the Lotus Sutra, and this is what Nichiren writes, quote, "It was only when he reached the age of 72 that he first began to intone Myoho Renge Cho, the Daimoku of the Sutra. However, people in faraway countries such as China and Japan were unable to hear of it at that time. It was over 1,000 years before China heard so much as the name of the sutra. Now, in another 350 years or more before it was heard in Japan. You see, ladies and gentlemen, please understand that the Buddha Shakyamuni did not teach or reveal the Lotus Sutra until he was 72 years old, or the last 8 years of his life. Now, again, it was over 1,000 years after the death of the Buddha before anybody ever heard of the Lotus Sutra, and it was another 350 years or more before they heard about it in Japan. So, what happened, ladies and gentlemen, that to give you an understanding of Buddhism, you see, people are under the impression, or under the thought, and under the teachings that the Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. That is what most people think about, and today you see people meditating, trying to find enlightenment. Now, this is what Nichiren writes about the subject. He said this. Now, this is a Gosho. It's called The Entity of the Mystic Law, and Nichiren writes, quote, "The sage practiced the law as his teacher and attained enlightenment, and therefore he simultaneously obtained both the mystic cause and the mystic effect of Buddhahood, becoming the thus come one of perfect enlightenment and fully realized virtues," unquote. You see, so you can get a correct understanding of Buddhism, it was taught and thought that Buddha attained enlightenment via meditation under the Bodhi tree. Now, if you look this up under Wikipedia, it reads, quote, "Gautama Buddha attained enlightenment while meditating under a ficus religiosa according to the Buddhist text. The Buddha meditated without moving from his seat for 7 weeks, 49 days under this tree," unquote. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Buddha taught expedient means. He did not attain enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, but he explains in the Lotus Sutra that it was 100,000 zillion, million, trillion years back before hell time that he attained enlightenment. And in the Lotus Sutra he explains that though he taught this only as an expedient means. Now, the Buddha understood that it will be very difficult for people to even comprehend someone who lived 100,000 zillion, trillion, million, years. And so what the Buddha did was he gave us a way to comprehend his profound Buddhist teachings. Now, Nichiren wrote a Gosho. Now, this Gosho is called The Real Aspect of the Gohonzon. Now, the Gohonzon is an object of worship that we who are proud Black Buddhists practice. For example, in this altar, this is an altar, and this scroll here is called a Gohonzon. Now, Nichiren inscribed the Gohonzon as a banner of propagation of the Lotus Sutra to give us an understanding of the Lotus Sutra. Now, Nichiren taught us how we are to gain faith in Buddhism. You see, he understood that it's very difficult just to say, well, have faith in this Gohonzon. So what Nichiren taught was a way for us to gain faith. Now, this is what he did. You see, the first volume of this now, in the Gosho is called The Real Aspect of the Gohonzon. And the Gosho reads, quote, "The first volume of great concentration and insight says, quote, how does one hear, believe in, and practice the perfect teachings to attain perfect enlightenment? The first volume on concentration and insight says, quote, "To believe in the perfect teachings means to awaken faith through doctrine and make faith the basis of practice." Please understand that in order to gain faith in Buddhism, you must study and begin to comprehend the profound teachings. For example, you're going to learn mathematics and science and trigonometry and geometry and all the sciences. Science you must study, and once you see the scientific and the profound methods, then you begin to have faith because it's scientific. You see, so the way we gain faith in Buddhism is we awaken through doctrine. That's what the Buddha teaches. Now, we who are proud Black Buddhists practice the teachings of the 13th century Black Buddhist sage Nichiren Shonin. Now, this is how Nichiren explains it in the writings again. His writings are called the Gosho. Now, there's a Gosho called the Entity of the Mystic Law. And it reads, "The mystic principle, that is the essential nature of phenomena, possess two aspects, the defiled aspect and the pure aspect. If the defiled aspect is operative, this is called delusion. If the pure aspect is operative, this is called enlightenment. Enlightenment constitutes the realm of Buddhahood. Delusion constitutes the realm of ordinary mortals." You see, what they have this idea that enlightenment is somewhere where you reach this perfect state of bliss and heaven. That's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is being able to open your life to the pure aspect. Now, this is what you must understand about the Buddhist teachings. You see, in the 2nd century AD, India was conquered by a white king by the name of Kanishka. It was King Kanishka who conquered the black people, and he created a new Buddhism that's based on race, culture, and language. It was King Kanishka who changed the Buddha from black to white. And it was King Kanishka, or under King Kanishka, this white king who conquered the black people of India. He created the world's first racism. The world's first racism and white superiority was a concept called the caste. Caste means varna, or color. And they used caste to separate people from the white at the top and black at the bottom. This is the world's first racism. Now, along with that, King Kanishka created a new Buddhism. See, he and a Brahmin by the name of Ashwagosha created a new Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism is a time in history where Buddhism became racist. So they killed the regular Buddhism, and what spread it throughout Asia was this Mahayana Buddhism that was separated. They call it superior, or they call this Mahayana teachings the higher teachings, and they call the other teachings, they gave it a name called Hinayana. They separated Buddhism in these terms, and it was King Kanishka who created his own second forward Buddhist council, where he changed the writings of Buddhism. And how did they change Buddhism? They did it through a new language called Sanskrit. See, Sanskrit is another name of extricating all black history, culture, and language from Buddhism. Now, it was the black Buddhist sage Nichiren who declared that only the correct teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni was the Lotus Sutra. See, although there exists Nichiren Buddhist sects in Japan, and they call themselves Mahayana Buddhists. Now, Nichiren rejected the Japanese Mahayana Buddhism, but the Nichiren sects call themselves Mahayana Buddhism, and they practice the Sanskrit, but they incorporate the Sanskrit into the teachings, and they extricate all black Buddhist history, culture, and language from Buddhism. We call this the defile aspect that entered Buddhism. You see, this is what Nichiren writes about it at a Go Show. That's a Go Show title, The Expedient Means and the Lifespan Chapters. And Nichiren writes, quote, "When we scrutinize the sutras and treatises with care, we find that there is a teaching about a precept known as following the customs of the region that corresponds to this. The meaning of this precept is that so long as no seriously offensive act is involved, even if one were to depart to some slight degree from the teachings of Buddhism, it would be better to avoid going against the manners and customs of the country. This is the precept expounded by the Buddha. It appears that some wise men who are unaware of this point." You see, when the Asians or the Japanese bring Buddhism to America, or the way they teach us black people, they don't teach us black people Buddhism, they bring us Asian culture. They have you sitting around somewhere meditating, practicing the teachings that's not the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, or they give you a teaching that extricates all your black history, all your black culture, all your language, and they even take you out of your culture and make you shame of who you are. And they tell you that you're trying to reach a state of enlightenment when they themselves are not enlightened. You see, that all the popular forms of music and dance comes from black people. You see, white people, when they came to America, they brought their culture with them. And they had music like the waltz, and they had the polkas, and the white folk created things like square dancing. Well, what they did to the blacks, they took the blacks and they made our ancestors slaves. And they took away all their culture, they took away all their history, and they took away all their language. But it was black people who reached deep inside themselves with that Buddha nature, that high life condition, and they came up with the culture, they came up with the music, they came up with a song, they came with the dance that helped to make America what it is today. It was the black folk who taught white people how to rock and how to roll. You see, that is what makes us Americans. It was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, "The greatness of America is its right to protest for rights."
That the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights.
You see, we who are proud black Buddhists protest the fact that Asians have extricated all black history, all black culture, all black language from Buddhism, and they give us meditation instead of education. For we who are proud black Buddhists bring you America, America's Buddhism. America's Buddhism is the proud black Buddhists. We are the original Buddhists. We are not some Asian You see, white people say, you trying to make Buddhism black. Hell yes! What that means is that I am black. And the Buddha taught that we should practice Buddhism inclusive of our culture, our language, and our history. You see, there is a teaching of Buddhism, and there's a Gosho called the gift of rights. And it reads, quote, the true path lies in affairs of this world. The Golden Light Sutra states, quote, to have a profound knowledge of this world is itself Buddhism. And he goes on further. He says, the Nirvana Sutra states, quote, all non-Buddhist scriptures and writings in society are themselves Buddhist teachings, not non-Buddhist teachings. He goes on further. He said, when the great teacher Milo compared these passages with that of the 6th volume of the Lotus Sutra that reads, quote, no worldly affairs of life or work are ever contrary to the true reality. He revealed their meanings and pointed out that although the first 2 sutras are profound, since their meaning is still shallow and fails to approach that of the Lotus Sutra, they relate to secular matters in terms of Buddhism, whereas the Lotus Sutra explains that secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. You see, the Japanese, white people, and black people who are trained by Asians, they took all the history, culture, and black language out of Buddhism. You see, they relate to secular matters in terms of Buddhism, whereas the Lotus Sutra says secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. So when you go into our history, or we go into our soul, or we go into our culture, we go into our history, all of that is Buddhism, as opposed to saying non-Buddhism. You see, they have you believing and understanding that Buddhism is some Asian on a mountain meditating. You see, the Lotus Sutra disagrees, and it teaches that secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. Now, Tina Turner purposefully broke away from the Asians, and she began to speak authoritatively about Buddhism. One thing that Tina Turner made clear, you would never see an Asian in Tina Turner's shadow or some Asian speaking for Tina Turner. Tina Turner taught us how to be proud Black Buddhists. You see, it was on February the 15th, 1979, when the first documented writing of a Black Buddhist, Tina Turner, happened in the February issue of Jet magazine, where Tina Turner is on the cover talking about her Buddhist faith. But Tina Turner is not just talking about her Buddhist faith. What Tina Turner brings us, she brings us an American style. And you see that movie, What Does Love Got to Do With It? You see, Tina Turner brings an American perspective. You see, Tina Turner grew up
just follow me
in an American culture, Black American culture. She came from this part of America, in Tennessee, right down the street, in a place called Nutbush, Tennessee. And her family was a part of the Woodlawn Missionary Baptist Church.
I know it feels strange, but it's chanting. I'm a Buddhist now. And when you chant, Anna, you can see things clearly. It's like life's mirror.
In order to give you an understanding of us proud Black Buddhists, you have to go to the Buddhism as it is practiced by Tina Turner to get an understanding as to who we are in the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. You see, Tina Turner make it a point not to associate with Asian Buddhists. You will never find an Asian in the shadow or standing or speaking for Tina Turner. She speaks Buddhism authoritatively. She is independent. She is a free Buddhist. You do not find Tina on some mountain meditating. And that it is the Lotus Sutra that teaches us that Buddhism is our everyday life. Now, let's go back to the movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? You see, let's talk about that. You see, it was in, what's that, 1985, to where the movie What's Love Got, or the song What's Love Got to Do with It came out. Now, let me make this point clear. When we say black, we do not mean race, but we mean culture. See, Tina Turner comes from a black culture, and she practiced Buddhism in a way that is inclusive of her black culture. Tina Turner is the best model of a black Buddhist, and she clearly delineates her Buddhist practice from Asian culture. You see, in regards to black people in America, Tina Turner is the most significant black Buddhist in the world. Tina Turner provides the absolute most significance to Proud Black Buddhists. Now, what is the Tina Turner significance? The significance of Tina Turner in regards to her Buddhist practice is the fact that she does not associate or relate her Buddhist practice to Asians or to the Asian view of Buddhism. If you are black and you want to get a clear view of Buddhism, you must examine Buddhism outside the realm of Asian culture, history, and practice. This is what Tina said about her Buddhist practice. Quote, I didn't have anybody, really no foundation in life, so I had to make my own way. Always, from the start, I had to go out in the world and become strong to discover my mission in life, unquote. See, let us first listen to the words of Tina Turner as she talks about Buddhism. The most important thing that you must understand is that Tina Turner speaks 100% authoritatively. Now, in fact, Tina promotes the concept of beyond. See, we Proud Black Buddhists have moved beyond any Asian Buddhist masters, and we follow the ultimate law of the Lotus Sutra, which is chanting Nam Mu Myoho Renge Kyo or Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Let us first listen to Tina talk about her faith and her Buddhist practice, and we're going to come back and finish our lecture. Let's listen to Tina Turner.
I tell you something I learned. Charm and harmony can change the negative into the positive. And that's how I changed it, through love and through getting things done, not from power, but just from love and from being a good person.
Welcome back to Speakeasy and our conversation with Tina Turner. I want to talk a little bit about your spiritual practice, because everybody I know, man or woman, wants to be Tina Turner. Now, I say, I say that because it isn't just your outer beauty, which is so obvious. I think they sense an inner beauty, and they want to know how you got there. Now, I know the story, but is there something that you can say that isn't just like pop psychology, but something meaningful for you that helped you find out who you really are?
Yeah, I want to try to simplify it so I don't overtalk, because I could start over there and end there. First, I have to say that I don't think a lot of people realize how important food for the mind is. They don't understand how important meditation or prayer is. You see, I never stopped. I went from my Baptist prayers to Buddhism. That's to say, maybe it was different words putting in at a time when I needed different words. The Lord's Prayer to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and then the book of saying words. What does it do? You can have a house beautiful, houses beautiful, cars, but there's still those moments when you don't feel good. Sometimes you're upset, you're just cranky, you're just unhappy, and you have no reason to be necessarily, or you're easily upset. Well, that's what the practice does for me. It helps me not to be upset easily. It helps me to deal with situations on a different level because I think differently about it. I don't get upset as easily. Yes, I still get upset because I'm only human. But the whole attitude towards someone getting upset because someone is blowing the horn, or look at that crazy person how he's driving, I don't get upset about it. Things go wrong in the business. Before I become angry, I will have to really dig into it to try to find what is going on before I get upset. Not upset first and then find out what's going on.
Tina infused Buddhism with the American spirit. You saw an American Buddhism, not some Asian sitting on a mountain, or not some Asian speaking for you, but Tina found that you taught that we got spirituality, that we can practice the profound teachings of the Lotus Sutra, and you don't have to have an Asian master. And it is only the Lotus Sutra that teaches us that the law of cause and effect in our expression of our culture is our Buddhist faith. It is the Lotus Sutra that teaches us that when the pure aspect is operative, this is enlightenment, and this is who we are at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. Thank you very much.